Please welcome Hannah Parish, General Manager for Ontario at Lyft Canada.
So shift or drift, we've had an entire transformation in our transportation system. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about how Lyft has shifted. I'm really, really excited here to speak to you today about Lyft's history and where we're going and how the changes in our culture have led to the change and the development of our company. But first, I'm going to talk to you a little bit how it's so meaningful to me and a little bit about why I chose to come to work at Lyft 6 weeks ago. So a little bit about me. You can describe me in 3 different ways. Number 1, proud cyclist. You will hear me a lot talk about getting people outside of their single occupancy vehicles, otherwise known as cars. I am a very passionate Canuck, born and raised in Canada, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well, and a mobility maverick. So the pictures on the left of your screen here actually start with the folding e-bike at the bottom. It's called Arrive, and it is the startup that I've actually founded at General Motors, of all places, before coming to Lyft. To do that, I really had to explore micromobility around the world and learn how it moves people and how we as humans are changing the way that we move through our cities. Like I said, I'm very passionate about getting people out of their cars. So what did I do? I came to work at a ride-sharing company. My passion for making our cities more livable, though, started before I even realized it in my teenage years. Growing up in the mid-90s during the big box boom, of those of you who can remember that, meant that our downtown in downtown Halifax, where I was born and raised, was a ghost town. It was boarded up stores. There was nowhere that anyone would go if you wanted to go downtown. Everyone drove out to the edges of the city to shop. And in fact, I remember when I was 16, 9 o'clock in the morning, me and my Birkenstocks getting my driver's license. First thing I wanted to do on my 16th birthday. What did I want? I wanted my driver's license. How many people had the same experience? Yeah, most of us. Absolutely. We're all the same vintage over here. My stepmother was first an alderman in Halifax, and then she actually became the director of the Downtown Halifax Commission. She began a crusade to reinvigorate Halifax's downtown and really turn around that desolate place to be somewhere that was thriving and walkable, somewhere that our community wanted to be. By the time she unfortunately passed away in 2001, my hometown had begun to do that. It had begun to thrive, and now it is a place that draws people not only from around the Maritimes, but from around the world to our wonderful little city. What you're looking at here on the screens is Carmichael Street. It leads from City Hall to our iconic town clock in Halifax. It is a legacy of my stepmother, Kate Carmichael, who would have been very, very proud. So let's begin this little jaunt that I'm going to take you down transportation nerddom. I apologize for taking you a little bit out of CRM world and taking you into a shift of an entirely different sort, but we're going to all geek out as a group here, so we're going to have a little bit of fun. Today, that urban world that we live in is changing more than ever before. My father grew up in Toronto, actually in Downsview, and when he goes back to his old neighborhood, he doesn't really recognize it. You can see from this really phenomenal map around Pearson Airport by Yuri Kozel that there was nothing around YYZ in 1954. Not true today, is it? I love how on this map you can actually see how some of the old runways have been incorporated into our new and thriving airport. it really illustrates that very different city that there was and now there is. In some ways, it's the same, but totally different. This fundamental shift in things like the time in our day, the money in our pocket, and the space, the physical space in our lives, is shifting how we as humans see the world. Today I'm going to walk you through how our transportation system is shifting to adapt to this changing environment. I'm going to say and, not but and. I also want to pause here and talk about the why. If we get so scared as business leaders of losing track of the shift, of not moving fast enough, then we fear being left behind. If we forget to think about the why behind our shift, we run the risk of losing the core of our cities and ourselves along the way. And that's the message that I want to hit home today. Our cities, and this is where we get into transportation nerddom, so forgive me for the next 5 slides. I'm going to try and scare you a little bit. Our cities around the world are densifying. By 2050, there will be 41 megacities around the world. A megacity is about 10 million people. Today, there's 23, and that's about 20 years from now, we will double. The GTA itself grew from being about 41% of the Ontario population, about 4 or 5 million people, to being forecasted by 2041 to being 52% of the population. So densifying from a percentage perspective. Also, it's going to be one of those mega cities. It's going to be about 10 million people, again, in less than 20 years. And the GTA itself used to be about 4 people per square meter. In 2066, it'll be almost 8 people per square meter. I hope you all have really good deodorant and enjoy cuddling. In 2066, Mississauga itself is going to be as dense as Toronto. When we think about Toronto and the GTA, we are all going to live a lot closer together. And when cities get this dense, what happens to us as humans and what happens to our culture? We are becoming this culture of little boxes. Since the 1970s, we have been building condos at a faster and faster rate. You can see blue is the 70s, green is the 80s, yellow is the 90s, orange is the, what are we calling them, the aughts. And red is actually just the 10s up to 2017. Little boxes means that we have less and less space to ourselves. Public space then becomes our backyard. Our parks, our public spaces become those places where we need to go and play and be ourselves. But in the city of Toronto, roads make up 27% of our physical real estate. But now that we all live in these little boxes, imagine what we could get back if we could remove some of those roads or remove some of those cars from those roads and take back all that public space. I live on the Danforth, and I love it in the summer when patios come out and all of the residents come out and we're all walking down the street. Imagine if we had double the room on the sidewalk. And Danforth went from 4 lanes to 2 or fewer and fewer cars. I ride my bike to work every day. Wouldn't it be amazing if I had dedicated bike lanes all the way across? And at almost $600,000 to buy a garage, you guys see this story a couple of weeks ago, blew my mind. $600,000 just to buy a garage? Can you think of a better way to spend your money than a tent for your car that is parked 95% of the time? I can. While we're at it, let's get rid of car payments and let's get rid of insurance and gas and maintenance and everything else that goes associated with the cost of cars. It goes quickly. In Canada, I think it's about $13,000 a year, and that's after taxes. Let's make the math easy. Generally, the cost of owning a car in Toronto is about a quarter of our average income. And that's, again, before taxes. And with 20% of the Toronto population living at or below the poverty line, providing people with alternate solutions to getting around to car ownership has got to be our focus. We've seen the number of people with driver's licenses fall in the last 20 years by over a third. And that decline has actually stayed all the way through. I told you that I wanted to go get my driver's license when I was 16 years old. My brother, who's only 2 years younger than me, didn't use his until he was 31. And you think about that, most of our kids just aren't moving around the same ways that we used to. Transportation itself is a massive market. It's really important to Torontonians. Every year, and this is some U.S. statistics, U.S. consumers spend more than $1.2 trillion on transportation. That's almost twice as much as healthcare, American healthcare. That's 3 times as much as entertainment. It's the second cost only under housing. And that statistic is also true within Canada. Transportation is our second highest cost other than housing. At Lyft, we believe that now, more than ever before, and possibly never again, will an industry this large see a shift from ownership to a service model. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we mean when we talk about transportation as a service. And Lyft is at the forefront of this shift. People thought we were nuts when we asked people to get in someone else's car. But more than 1 billion rides later, like billion with a B, since 2012, we are just getting started. Today, Lyft is one of the largest and fastest growing multimodal transportation, I've been practicing that in front of the mirror, multimodal transportation networks, and it's based on really strong values. We are addressing one of the largest market shifts, I think, since the invention of the car. This is our mission: improve people's lives with the world's best transportation. For me, it really has 2 parts. First, improve people's lives, and second, the world's best transportation. So let's focus on that second part first. What does the world's best transportation mean? Well, increasingly, people who live in cities are responding to these changes that we've been talking about in their urban environment and moving away from using and owning cars for very good reasons. Because transportation is a service, and they, of course, now want it on demand. I blame Tony the Tiger and his band of heathens. Show of hands. How many of you grew up eating cereal? Yes, me too. And what was the whole point of breakfast? Any of you who says fueling my day is lying to your 9-year-old selves? It was all about that toy at the bottom of the box. And we were willing to do a little bit of work to get that toy, right? Maybe eat a bowl or 2, but we very quickly learned that we could game the system, right? Who needed to eat the whole box when you could pour it out, delaying that toy gratification for days? I used to pour it out into a larger bowl, into a plastic container, onto the table, into the dog's bowl. Sorry, Mom. The whole point here is that we have been trained since childhood that instant gratification is the way of the future, is the way to receive everything. And now we are applying that to transportation. As our journeys are becoming part of our destinations, we no longer habitually just choose one mode. I work downtown. I don't want to park, so I ride my bike or I take transit. If I'm going to go out and have dinner with friends, I don't drive. If I want to get some exercise in my daily routine, I ride my bike. If I'm wearing beautiful but very probably uncomfortable shoes, I don't want to walk or take the subway. If I have to get the kids to daycare, go get groceries, I need a very reliable way and secure way to get that cargo home. Everything changes and every single journey is different. And we are now changing our transportation choices based on where we're going and how we want to get there. The point being is that we want consistent, reliable, convenient transportation that seamlessly fits within each individual trip. And we want it within a 3-minute walk and a frictionless payment system and, a little bit more cereal, please. But with all of these options, why would you own a vehicle? I remember a story a couple of years ago that actually illustrates this point. When I was at Arrive, we were doing a photo shoot down on Lakeshore East, and I had ridden my bike down there, and the agency people had carpooled. It was fantastic, and I thought, great, okay, so we were going back to the agency after the photo shoot, and I said, listen, I'll race you. I threw my leg over my, old bike with my basket, my balloon tires, and they jumped in their car, and they turned right out of the parking lot, and I turned left, and I went down Eastern Avenue, and 17 minutes later, I was at University in front. 17 minutes after that, they showed up. But that's the whole point. They had been caught in traffic, and they had really thought about carpooling together, but they hadn't thought about what that journey was going to be like. And more and more people are really, really, truly taking that into consideration. So now let's go back to the Lyft mission. Let's talk about that why, that first part, improve people's lives. And it's first for a reason. As our culture shifts from ownership model to transportation as a service, the why behind our shift is just as important as the excellence in execution. Incorporating that strong why is not only the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do for your business. Almost half of millennials and Gen Zs will start using a product or service because of the way that you show up in the world and you do positive things. But almost a third or over a third will actually stop using it because you do negative things or show up in the world in a negative way. And before you object to me about millennials, most millennials, the oldest ones, are actually 37, so they're almost middle-aged by now. And by the way, there are more millennials than baby boomers, so don't tell me they're not important to your business. So then, what are we really, really doing at Lyft to live these values? That's our why in Lyft. Here are some other examples of what we do to live our why. Every quarter, we partner with nonprofit organizations around Toronto to give them $1,000 a month or $3,000 in total towards rides for our constituents. And these relationships don't stop there. I was actually at Black Creek Community Farm a couple of weeks ago. How many people here have heard of Black Creek Community Farm? Okay, good, a few of you. I had never actually heard of them, and I've lived in Toronto for 20 years. I was dismayed at the fact that I hadn't heard about them, but I was astounded at what I saw around me. I'm getting head nods, I love it. They're this really amazing community, sustainable farm right in the heart of North York. It was incredible to hear the stories from the staff. Not only did our program help the families that really needed to get to the farm, help them with their transport. It helped those families get really nutritious, local vegetables, get more vegetables in their diet, but also help the staff move their cargo more easily and more cheaply, helping keep those costs down for those people who were in need. In fact, our experience with Black Creek Farm led to a partnership with them for our grocery access program, where we partner with local organizations and nonprofits and low-income families, sometimes seniors as well, living in food deserts with a $2.50 discount per ride to their local grocery store or community farm. Affordable and reliable access to transportation has a huge impact on the amount and the nutrition that people get in their diets. And our partnership with the 519 in Wheels for All program helped us really round out our Too is Too Few program and Pride Toronto support, where, for example, Lyft was the first to add more than 2 pronouns into our app to really allow people to live our value of be yourself and bringing their authentic selves to every moment of their day. And this is what Too is Too Few means to us. I love going to work every day at a place where I can truly be my authentic self, where I wake up in the morning and I get excited going to work and going to the office because there are people there who I just love to be with because they are themselves and I can be myself every single day. I also love it because Lyft is good for the environment. Over a year ago, we became one of the world's largest purchasers of carbon offsets. We made all Lyft rides carbon neutral. Last September, we even took it a step further and committed to full carbon neutrality. Since April of 2018, we've effectively eliminated the amount of carbon that would take 2.4 million acres of trees to remove in a single year by purchasing over 2 million metric tons of carbon offsets. That's a lot, in case you're wondering. It's about 13 times the size of New York, 16 times the acreage of Toronto. It's a big, big, big place. Electrification of our fleet, of our bikes, of our scooters, shared rides for higher occupancy. These are all things that we are helping people access. Because being part of our community is important to us. We are not from away, is a phrase that we would use at home. We are Torontonians, and our city is our community. For example, and this one's hard for us to talk about, but there was a terrible tragedy of the van attack last year. Everyone is aware of this one. Lyft was still new into Toronto at the time, and Aaron, our managing director, was quite beside himself. He wanted to do something. So against some advice, and this is important for the business leaders in the audience, against some advice, he actually offered free rides to people in the affected areas. I'm going to be honest with you. We lost a lot of money that day, and Aaron wasn't sure if he had a job. But when he got the phone call from Logan, our CEO, and said, "Good job. You did the right thing. You put your community first and you lived your values," he knew that he had brought our why to life. And today I'm actually overjoyed to announce that we're continuing to put our community first again. So on October 21st, we will again be supporting everyone who wants a ride to the polls in our Ride to Vote program. It's important that everyone has a voice and that everyone has an opportunity to exercise that voice. So at the end of the day, where are we? We're going through one of the biggest shifts that I've seen in my lifetime. That shift from rural and suburban to urban. That shift from owned to shared transportation. It means that our cities need to become more livable. And the key to that is getting out of our cars. I'm really, really proud to be part of the team at Lyft who are enabling that incredibly huge shift and doing it in a way that my stepmother would be proud of. And that's really the message of my chat with you today. Be innovative and, as I think it was Gandhi who said, be the change you want to see in the world, and do it in a way that would make the people around you proud. Who knows? Maybe you'll get a street named after you someday too. Thank you.